Good evening, ladies as well as gentlemen. Papa Boris here with some more Human Resource Machine. In previous videos, I said that these optional advanced branches are not necessarily harder than the other puzzles. Well, that ends here. The last branch is actually really fucking hard puzzles. So this one I was able to solve with blood, sweat, and tears after many frustrating, I don't know, hours, half hours, days, not quite sure. This one I could solve half of, and this one I actually couldn't solve at all. So they're tough. I'm gonna go ahead and do the alphabetizer. These two puzzles, 37 and 39, I guess, are weirdly quite easy. But this one's going to be tough, so we'll see how long it takes us. And then if there's time, I'm going to mop up the easy ones too in this video, but otherwise I'll save those for the next video. Okay, so yeah, my lady's old now. She's got poofy gray hair. Blobbity blue. Yep, okay. So the puzzle, this one pissed me off so much because it starts out seeming quite easy. It's just determine which word comes first if you were to order them alphabetically and send only that word to the outbox. So it seems pretty straightforward. Like, all right, well, we're going to start. Oh, and I should mention, these words are both terminated by zeros, so that's how you know when the word ends. So we're going to start really easy. We're just going to write the words down, like dog and cat. We're going to save their locations. And then we're just going to test, you know, the first letter of each word. So, you know, I'll do C minus D, and then if it's negative, that means C comes earlier in the alphabet. If I did D minus C, it'd be a positive value. It wouldn't be negative, so that means that dog comes first, or dog comes later in the alphabet. And then I just submit the word who's got the first letter that's earlier in the alphabet. Piece of cake, right? Well, not exactly, because then there's like a whole mountain of bullshit corner cases that you have to consider. What if the two words begin with the same letter? Like what if it's like, you know, top and, you know, something like taught. All right, then you check the T's, they're the same. You check the O's, they're the same. Then you check the P and the T. Okay. So then, you know, yeah, basically it's not enough to just check the first letter. You really do need to check like across all the letters. So then I did that, and I thought I was going to be, you know, taken care of. I had plenty of lines of code to spare. I was like, wow, I crushed this puzzle. I'm so awesome. And then the game threw this thing at me like, well, your solution works for this particular input, but there's other inputs it won't work for. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about, game? Well, then they throw this bullshit at you. What if it's like to and top? So you check the T, they're the same. You check the O, they're the same. You check the third letter, there's no value here, your program crashes. And it's like, oh my god, you better, yeah. No, it's like a zero, so when you do 0 minus P, then your program crashes. And you're like, oh my god, this is fucking ridiculous. So you have to check for that. And then that still didn't work, because what if it's like this? What if there's a top and a 2? You check the T minus T, you get 0. You check O minus O, you get 0. You check P minus 0, that's a letter minus a number, that's legal, program crashes. And you're like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. So you need to also check to see like if you've hit the end of this word or the end of this word. Either one, if it's the end of them, then you need to check like and say, okay, like if one word is a superset of the other, then the shorter one is the one that is the winner. So there's like a whole bunch of crap you have to check for, and then after spending hours on this, you just go on the internet and see that there are people who like wrote a program that is both shorter and faster than yours, and you're like, oh my god, I just want to die and cry at the same time. Anyway, let's go ahead and see. I'm going to give you the solution I found. So this is far from the most impressive solution that might exist in the world. It's just really one of the most humbling experiences you can ever have in your life is you find a solution to a puzzle in this game, and you go online and you're like, oh, I bet this is about as good of a solution as there can be, and just discover that, like, nope, not even close. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and label this space as the winner. And again, I'm going to actually take the time to write the full word out because these things get pretty confusing. So having, you know, complete words helps. Oh god, that looks like a Weimer. All right, winner. I really got to learn to start my first letter as left as possible. Okay, then over here, I'm just going to have a variable that's a permanent 0 and a variable that's a permanent 10. Because basically, they gave you a 10 in here, and that's kind of handy. Basically, your first word's going to start at 0, and your second word's going to start at 10. And they never give you a word that's longer than 10 letters, so you can get away with that. I'm sure there's a way to do this where you just write one word and then immediately start writing the second word, but I just didn't have enough sanity left over after solving this the basic way to try to figure out how to do it that way. So this 0 is going to be the address at which the first word starts, and this is going to be the address at which the second word starts, but I'm also going to use these two variables to, like, you know, move through the words. So this will be like the letter of the first word that I am currently looking at this time. That's in contrast to these variables, which are always going to be 0 and 10. These aren't going to go up and down. Okay, so what I need to do is, first of all, I need to take the 10 and I need to put it in the permanent 10 space. And then I'm going to grab the letter of the first word. And you might say, wait a minute, Boris, what about putting a 0 in the 0 space? Well, zeros are pretty easy to obtain, so I'm just going to get a 0 later on and save a step so that I don't have to you know, do the copy and paste. I can just do the paste. Basically, once I find the 0 of the second word, before I, you know, go and do whatever other stuff I have to do, I'm just going to take a second to copy it down to the 0 space, and then I can save myself one line of code this way. Anyway, I take the first letter of the first word and I copy it to the address, the current address of the first word. Then, if it is a 0, in other words, if I've just copied a 0 down, that means I've reached the end of the first word, and I need to now continue on with the second word. But I'm actually going to do this later, because let's just finish the first word for now. The copying down a word is pretty easy. We bump up the first address, and then we just jump back here. So basically, we're in this place, we're copying the first word down to the table. And you know what? This is a pretty complicated thing, so let me just show you how this works. So we take a 10, put it down. All right, so we write down the U and update the first address. Then we write down the N, update the first address. Then we write down the I, and do this. And then we write down the T, and do this. And then we take that 0, this marks the end of the first word. And after we copy it down, we check if it's 0. Like, oh, it's a 0, time to start copying the second word. Okay, so when we copy the second word, it's going to look very similar to what we did for the first word. And I bet there's probably some crazy way to have this work for both words, this block of code, or maybe there isn't. I don't even fucking know. The point is, we take the first letter of the second word. Oh, and here you can see this input. This is like the bullshit case where one word is a superset of the other, under and un. So this is where you have to have all this like error checking here to make sure that you don't cause the thing to crash. So then I copy it to the address where the second word begins, and it's really the same exact thing as for the first word. If it's 0, then I'm done. But if it's not 0, I bump the second address up by 1, and I jump back and keep on reading my second word. Okay, now once I find a 0, that means my second word is done, and now we have to get to the part of the code where we actually like figure out which word is you know, the earlier word in the alphabet. So a few quick things. First of all, after I found a 0, I'm gonna copy it to the first space, which may seem a little bit odd, but basically I need to put my first marker back to the beginning of the first word rather than reading at the end of the first word. This is one where you can't go backwards to forwards, because I really do need to check the first letter of the first word and the first letter of the second word, because that's how you tell alphabetization. It's not like that other problem, the duplicate finder, where you could just check backwards to forwards or forwards to backwards. It was all the same. So I put a 0 in the first spot because I want to start reading at the beginning of the first word, and this is where I'm also going to copy down my permanent 0 so that I have a 0 if I need it later on. Then we copy from my permanent 10 and copy it to the second spot. Again, this second will have been bumped up every time. Like if you know this word is 5 letters long, it'll be like U-N-D-E-R, and then second will be, and then the 0 will be at the 15. So my second variable will actually be reading 15, not 10. So I copy my permanent 10 and reset the second word location to be 10. So at this point in the process, this is a 0, this is a 10, this is a 0, this is a 10, and both words are written on the board. The first word starts at 0 address and ends in a 0, so it'll say in this input UN0. The second word starts at the 10 and goes until it ends, and then it's a 0. I'm assuming this word is under, so it'll be UNDER, and then there will be a 0 right there. So that's the current state of things at this part of the code. Now what we do is we copy the first letter of the first word, and here we have to do a little bit of error checking. If it's a 0, we're going to actually end up jumping all the way down, but if it's a 0, that means we've reached the end of the first word, and that means that it has to be the winner. So we're going to make the first word the winner, because if we've reached the end of it, that means, which is actually what's going to happen here, we check U, they're the same, we check N, it's the same, we take the second letter, we take the next letter of the first word, oh, it's a 0, so that means we've reached the end of it, so that word is the winner. It's earlier in the alphabet. But we'll do all that stuff later, so for now, let's not worry about it. Basically, if it's 0, then some bullshit's gonna happen. But as long as it's not a 0, we're gonna take the first letter of the second word, and we're gonna check if it's 0, because the same exact thing. Like if the next letter of the second word is 0, that means that the second word is un, and like the first word is under, and the second word is the one that's earlier in the alphabet. So again, we have to do this check for bullshit purposes. But assuming neither of these bullshit things happens, we're simply going to take the first letter of the second word and subtract from it the current letter of the first word. And at this point, if that's 0, then there's some other bullshit that we have to do, because it means the two letters are the same. But if we don't jump at the 0 here, that means we're basically in the simple scenario where the two words start with a different first letter. So in that case, all we have to do is find out which word comes earlier in the alphabet. So for that, we use a jump negative check. So like, let's say that the second word was cat and the first word was dog. We would do C minus D, we'd get -1. That means that the second word is the winner. The second word is the one that's earlier in the alphabet. So we say, look, our second word is the winner. The way that we recognize this is by taking 10 and copying it to the winner field. This tells us that the winner is the word that begins at the address 10. And once we do that, we're going to go ahead and basically copy the, oops, that's the wrong value. We're going to copy the current letter of the winning word. If it is 0, then that means that we have finished essentially copying the winning word, and we're just going to go jump all the way, we're going to go jump all the way back here. I don't know how to get the program to end except for to read something from the inbox when there's nothing there. That's like the way to tell the program that it's over and that you're done doing its task. Okay, but as long as it's not a 0, that means there's more of the winning word to read, so we simply outbox it. We bump the address of the winner up by 1, so we go to read the next letter of the winning word, and then we jump back here. So that this is the part where we basically read our winning word and put it in the outbox. Okay, but there's quite a bit more that we need to do. So if it's not negative back here, if when we subtract we take the current letter of the second word and subtract the current letter of the first word, if it's not negative, that means actually the first word is the winner. In which case, we need to take the number 0 and copy it to the winner. And that tells the program that the 0 is the winning word. And actually, I guess I don't really need to copy to winner here, do I? Can't I just, maybe just jump? Yeah, I can just jump like this. So I take the number 0, and then I jump here, where I copy what I'm holding in my hand as the winning word, and then I start to read the winning word back. Let me just make sure this actually works. It's a complicated program, so I apologize if I mess up at any point. So if it's negative, that means the second word is early in the alphabet, so I take my 10, copy it to the winner, and move on. Otherwise, I take a 0, copy it to the winning word, and move on. Okay, got it. Perfect. Okay. So this is basically if we've actually found two letters that are different. But obviously there's some stuff that we haven't taken care of. I need to find out what that stuff is. Oh yeah, so basically, if I copy from the first word and I get a 0, that means I've reached the end of the first word. That means that the first word is the winner. So I need to jump to this place, which is where I make my first word the winner. If I copy from the second word and it's a 0, that means I need to jump to this place, yep, where I make my second word the winner. oh yes, okay, so if I subtract the two words and if I subtract the two letters and I get a 0, that means that I need to keep on working, basically, because I need to bump each word up by 1 and check the next comparison. So I bump the current letter of the first word, I bump the current letter of the second word, and I go back to, oh fucking god, here maybe? And then I check to see if either of them is a 0 and move on. Alright, I don't know if this is gonna work, so we're gonna just take it, you know, I'm not gonna do it one step at a time, but let's just see where it breaks, and then, you know, we'll hopefully be able to fix it. So there, I've written down the first word, I've written down the second word. This is actually the hardest possible case, so if there's an error in the program, I'm sure it'll be revealed here. Okay, so we make sure that the first is at the beginning, the second's at the beginning. Okay, now I copy the first letter of the first word. It's not 0. Then I check the second letter of the second word. Is not 0. So I subtract the first letter. I get a match. So I have to do some bullshit. I have to basically bump both words up by 1. And then I copy the first word, or the letter from the first word. It's not 0. I copy the letter from the second word. It's not 0. So I subtract, hoping to find anything but 0. Unfortunately, it's 0. So I have to do this bullshit again. Copy that and copy that. And then I take this and I'm like, oh, it's a 0. That means the first word is the winner. So I take a 0, copy it to the winner. Interesting. If the first word, if I find a 0 in the first word, then I don't actually need to copy. I don't actually need to. Let's see, where am I jumping? If I copy from first and it's a 0, I actually jump here and copy another 0, but that's actually redundant. That's doing a bunch of extra steps. You know what? I'm gonna fix that. I'm holding a 0 in my hand at this point, so I can just straight up copy it as the winner, and then that should work. Okay, well, we'll see if that fucks everything up or not. So okay, let's I might have actually improved on my previous solution here. So here we have a less bullshitty case. The first two letters are the same, but then there's actually a different letter. So this actually shouldn't take quite as long. Okay, so it was a little too early here, but okay. So we check the first letter of the first word. It's not 0. Check the first letter of the second word. It's not 0. We subtract them. We find a match. So fuck my life. Up, up. Test the second letter. It's not 0. Test the second letter. It's not 0. So I find another match. Fuck my life. Bump, bump. Okay, now here, you know, God has smiled upon our souls with mercy. We check the first letter of the current letter of the first word. It's not 0. We check the current letter of the second word. It's not 0. Then we subtract the first word, and oh my God, it's not 0. So that means we got a negative result. What that means is that the second letter is earlier in the alphabet than the first. So we should jump here because it's negative. We take a 10. We make the 10 the winner, and then we start to read the winner back. First letter's a U. Next letter's an N. Next letter's a D. Next letter's an O. And now we read the next letter and it's actually a 0. So we jump all the way back here, read the next value in the inbox, and we should be done. Oh, thank God. Okay. I was worried I was going to get that message about, like, it worked for this input, but isn't generally going to work. Alright, so I think actually, yeah, my last time I doing this thing, I got 7 or so. But thankfully the speed challenge is there, so we don't need to do any more with this. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.